I've been thinking about starting this channel for a while, and frequently with more of a light-hearted backdrop to it, reactions to stuff going on in the world, maybe some music reactions and stuff like that. But with events of the last 24 hours referring to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I thought, you know what, let's go ahead and make a video. And let's go ahead and say some things. So, to start off, I don't have a script. I don't even really know how to use video editing software, so this is going to be more or less stream of consciousness here. And I also don't really fit in well with the politics as defined with the two-party system in America. So, kind of keeping the partisan side of it out of it, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum. Regardless even of Charlie's talking points, and if you're a fan of him or not, or if you thought he was the evilest guy that ever walked the earth, which would be an unsubstantiated position, I think. But what I'm seeing from a cultural perspective on both sides, and I'm going to address each side separately, is something that we should all be paying very, very close attention to. On the right-hand side, it is, I think what people don't realize is the fundamental emotional mechanisms and processes through which each of these two sides of the country that we find is that it's very, very different for each side. The left is prone to emotional and reactive behavior. This is why they're liberals. They're firebrands in a lot of ways, right? We've seen this throughout history. Conservatives, for the most part, enjoy the status quo. They want things to stay the same. They are not given to flights of fantasy. They're not really given to progression in a lot of ways, which is why obviously the terms like progressive have been co-opted by the left in order to represent their ideas, right? Their progressive ideas. They want to move things forward. The right, conservative, and conservatism is simple. They want things to stay the same. They're conservative in their beliefs and in their methodologies, and they want things more than anything just to stay as they are, for better or worse. There's critiques on both sides, but that's not what this video is about. What I'm seeing from the right is a sense of degradation of the system, right? That the status quo no longer holds true, that they are not in the world that they know. And what happens when you take people like that, who are centered in their thinking around a system of order, and you remove the order and you throw them into chaos, they will react violently to that, and they will seek to reestablish an order which they are comfortable in. And what we're seeing from the left right now, a lot, and not everybody, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate for however many people see this video, but there's a lot of people on the left. I mean, Congress couldn't even get through a session with a prayer without people decrying that, right? People celebrating this, people cheering, it's almost a Luigi Mangione type situation where they're like celebrating this individual for killing someone they see as an ideological enemy. This cannot, well, it can happen, but it cannot happen without dramatic side effects. What is going to happen, in my opinion, and I think this has been coming for a long time, but we are moving from a cold culture war, a culture of ideas and words, or war rather, ideas and words about culture, to a hot one. And in a very, very real way, Charlie might end up being the first death that starts off a revolutionary act. Okay, conservatives are, well, there's just a lot of violent sentiment fomenting on the right now, and not entirely unjustified. The right has been demonized for a decade or more. It's called Nazis, homophobic, transphobic, this, that, lacking empathy. And there's a point of which you can tell somebody something so many times before they go, okay, fine, I'll be the monster that you say that I am. You cannot continuously demean a person's character, a group's character, millions and millions and millions of people's character, especially not people who care about the content of their character in the way that the conservative mind does, without them getting to the point where they are going to want to do something about this. And we are very, very close to that. And on the left, there is this sense of celebration of victory, and I don't think that they understand the concept of a martyr. Maybe this is the a-religious aspect of the left, the secularism, where they don't really quite understand the concept of martyrdom the way that a lot of, the Judeo-Christian right does. Though you would think that if they look back at civil rights heroes like Malcolm X or Martin Luther King and how their deaths brought about change in culture, that they would recognize that, hey, a lot of times if somebody has the attention of tens of millions of people who agree with them, killing them doesn't actually demean their position, makes it stronger. So what has happened now is that Charlie Kirk has become a martyr. There's no way about it. The right is claiming it. You see it all over the place. He's a martyr now in the minds of the conservative right. And what happens when a person becomes a martyr is two things. One, they cannot provide any context to their claims. All right, everything they've said, everything they've done is now stagnant. Right, it cannot grow, it cannot change, it cannot evolve. Okay, there's no more discussion that can occur. And in that, it will then become corrupted. Their things will be taken out of context. Things will be used to justify. We see this with Christianity all the time, right? Jesus was all about loving your neighbor and forgiving, one another, and 70 times 7, and ultimately somebody who in many ways preached pacifism. And yet we had a crusade come out of it. We've had multiple wars. We've had a lot of people use Christianity to further their own selfish ends. And that is something that on the right will happen, because there are not 100% good actors on either side. It's not like the right is the absolute moral right in everything, and the left is evil, though there are elements to the left right now, I think, being definitely on the wrong side of history here. What's going to happen is that Charlie Kirk is going to become an icon. He's going to become a fixed moment in time, and his ideology and the beliefs that he espoused are going to become elevated to a level which they did not previously have, no matter how popular he was. And while I think that he was a very smart guy, and I think that he was excellent what he did, and I think he was right on a lot of things, I also disagree with him on a lot of things. And I think a lot of people on the right maybe feel the same. But now what it is he's now, if anybody is even slightly aligned with the right, he is now the martyr for that side. And those views of his can become taken out of context, and you can take a line and it can be used to justify so many things, because he's a martyr now. And the death of a martyr, the death of a significant person, fair or not, right or not, holds far more gravitas in the zeitgeist of our culture than the death of a random person being killed in a street crime. Whether by police or, I know a lot of people I've seen are trying to use like other assassinations, other killings, other deaths, other problems with society as a way to like somehow say, oh, well, this is just what it is. It's not. And it is foolish. It is willful ignorance to try and pretend that a political assassination is the same thing as an unjust shooting by a police officer. It's not the same thing. And so what we're looking at right now as a culture, if we don't pull the reins really hard, is we're looking at civil conflict on an actual physical scale. And I'm not sure that there's any way back from that. I'm not sure that there's a world in which we kumbaya and we hold hands and we get back together and Now, okay, everything's all goody-goody, and we're back to the 90s type of political discourse in this country. It's just dead now. It was on life support now, and I think in a lot of ways it probably died with Charlie. And if we were to have any hope whatsoever, people on the left, you have to stop celebrating now. You have to say, this was terrible, we don't agree with these actions, thoughts and prayers. Don't try to demean it. Don't try to say, oh, what about this? And definitely don't cheer. People on the right, if we were to avoid many of our sons and daughters and brothers and sisters from dying, we have to, as hard as it might be the bigger man, and to stick to those Judeo-Christian ethics that we were taught. Turn the other cheek, even though we've turned the other cheek dozens of times. And I say we not because I consider myself a Republican, but because when the battle lines are drawn on this, I will inevitably find myself on the right side of this, because I simply can't go along with the, frankly, nonsense that has become indicative of left-wing ideology of late. Do I think that gay farmers should be able to own AK-47s to protect their marijuana fields? Absolutely. However, if that involves, all the other nonsense that comes with and the left is saying, I just can't support it. And the right, do I believe that we need a theocracy? Do I believe that we need to remove the separation of church and state, and that we need to be a white supremacist culture? Absolutely not. But do I think that the loss of Judeo-Christian ideology is leading to a lot of this? Yeah, it is. We are a godless country now, and this might go a little deep for people, but Friedrich Nietzsche, was frequently celebrated for coining the term that God is dead. And what a lot of people who are uneducated don't realize is that that is not a celebratory fact. That is a loss of the rudder of society. And that's what is happening right now in our country. We've lost our rudder. We are adrift in a sea of chaos. And a man without a rudder, this is a scripture, will be blown as the wind decides. And we are being blown around right now, and it is a storm that is coming. A big storm. A storm that we have not seen in this country for 100 years plus, since the Civil War. And for those who think that a civil war is not possible in the modern environment, you are a fool. It can happen just as easily now as it ever has. And for the sake of peace and for the sake of holding the world in its current form, we should do our best, left and right, to strive away from that, to both grab the rudder as best we can and steer away from the storm. Because if that does not happen, there is only so many times you can poke the bear. There's only so much straw you can lay upon the camel's back, and it will break. And what will come out of that is not what anybody wants. And if you think that that's what you want, you're also a fool. Because no matter how much one might want glorious battle or vindictive revolution, I guarantee you're not down for the smoke. I guarantee you're not ready to taste blood on your teeth. Okay? I guarantee you don't want to see your friends and your family members and your neighbors with their insides on their outsides. And that's what's coming. If we don't do something, that's what's coming. And I do get the sense, even as I say this, that it's shouting into the wind. Because I don't think we can pull back. But by the grace of God, maybe we can. I'm Zach, and that's my attack.